Donald Trump has just admitted something that sent a chill down the spines of his own advisors. He has absolutely no idea how to stop the Republican senators who are rebelling from within his own party. Don't let the headlines fool you into thinking this is just another routine policy dispute. This is a brutal power struggle, and Donald Trump is losing. Republican senators are preparing to pass the War Powers Resolution, a move that would strip away the most powerful weapon in a president's arsenal, the ability to unilaterally launch wars to expand his grip on power. At this point, passage of the resolution appears almost inevitable, and it would deal a devastating blow to Trump's ambitions. You need to understand this clearly. Donald Trump does not care about national security or world peace. What he cares about is concentrating power. Endless wars and meaningless military conflicts are tools he uses to maintain a permanent state of emergency and solidify his image as a wartime leader. But this time, his own party is saying no. Trump's panic isn't just about losing military authority, it's about yet another defeat in a growing string of losses that has left him furious. To grasp the depth of this deception, look at what Senator Rand Paul has just revealed. Rand Paul, one of the Republicans leading this internal rebellion, exposed Trump's strategy during an appearance on Joe Rogan's show. He explained that the Trump administration is trying to manufacture a pretext to attack Venezuela. They claim they want to eliminate drug cartels allegedly working with Maduro. They want you to believe the United States has to blow up an entire country to stop the flow of drugs. But that, Rand Paul says, is a lie. The cartels and the drugs are not what matter to Trump. The real objective is regime change. So why bring drugs into it at all? Because they need a drug predicate. They need a way to tell the public this isn't a war. It's just a massive law enforcement operation, an arrest warrant carried out with missiles and bombs. They have convinced some members of Congress that bombing the capital of another country and overthrowing its leader is justified simply because that leader has been indicted on drug charges. But look at how absurd that indictment really is. Rand Paul points out that in addition to drug charges, the U.S. has indicted Maduro for possessing or conspiring to possess machine guns. Stop and think about that. A head of state charged for possessing machine guns to protect himself. Is there a single world leader who doesn't have guards carrying automatic weapons? We have them too. Charging a foreign head of state under U.S. gun laws for actions taken inside his own country is legally insane. It makes no sense at all. It's nothing more than a pretext. Donald Trump is grasping for any excuse, no matter how ridiculous, to militarize foreign policy. He does not care about drug trafficking. Remember, he has pardoned drug traffickers in the past. What he wants is a story, an enemy to rally voters around, and a conflict to distract from his failures at home. But this time, the con has been exposed from the inside. Donald Trump is searching for any excuse he can find to militarize the United States, and he's doing it right in front of your eyes. Look at ICE. This is no longer just a law enforcement agency. It is Trump's Frankenstein monster brought to life, a place where his worst instincts and most toxic rhetoric have been transformed into a permanent policing force, ready to strike at anyone while failing to keep anyone truly safe. But his ambitions don't stop at the border. He wants a grand narrative, something the entire country can be rallied behind. A conflict that lets him claim he's protecting America from foreign powers like Russia or China. And when Venezuela wasn't hot enough, he turned to Greenland. You need to pay close attention to this because it sounds like an April Fool's joke, but it is real U.S. foreign policy. Trump has openly discussed and refused to rule out the use of military force to seize Greenland. Greenland is not some unclaimed island drifting in the ocean. It belongs to Denmark. Denmark is a core NATO member. That means Donald Trump is threatening military action against a NATO ally, an act of madness without precedent in nearly a century of modern history. When reporters asked whether he would be willing to abandon NATO to achieve his goal in Greenland, Trump did not deny it. He said, "I'm not going to tell you what I'm willing to do, but I won't take any options off the table." He tried to justify it by claiming Greenland is critical to national security and that the U.S. must prevent Russia or China from taking control. But look at the raw reality. Trump claims he wants to stop China, yet he is actively selling out American interests to China in semiconductor manufacturing. He says he wants to contain Russia, yet he abandons Ukraine, America's frontline strategic ally against Russia. So what exactly is the strategic logic behind Greenland? There is none. It's an empty threat. Trump loves threats. He uses them to distract the media from domestic failures and to project strength and toughness. But this time the world isn't afraid. It's laughing. World leaders are uniting to tell him the idea is absurd. And more importantly, that ridicule is spreading to the U.S. Senate, where Trump's power is now being openly tested and is beginning to collapse. John Thune, the Republican leader in the Senate, has just admitted a painful truth Trump doesn't want to hear. He isn't sure he has the votes to block the war powers resolution. Let that sink in. The Republican majority leader cannot control his own party to protect a Republican president. Trump reportedly erupted in rage after 5 Republicans voted with Democrats last week to advance the resolution. Now all eyes are on Josh Hawley and Todd Young, both of whom received direct phone calls from Trump and still refuse to say how they would vote. This is not just a procedural defeat. It is a public political humiliation. Trump called, Trump threatened, Trump applied pressure, and the result? A complete and total zero. Donald Trump made call after call, applying pressure to member after member of Congress, and what did he get in return? A big fat zero. Just look at the recent health care bill to see how badly party discipline has collapsed. 17 Republicans crossed party lines to join Democrats in extending the ACA subsidies, the Affordable Care Act subsidies. These are the very subsidies Trump tried to kill at all costs in order to fund one of the largest tax cuts for the ultra-wealthy in this country's history. 17. That's not a small leak. That's a crack in the dam. And of course, we can't forget the vote on the Epstein files. Near unanimous votes in both the House and the Senate to release the full records with only a single Republican defector. Donald Trump has suffered loss after loss, consecutive painful defeats on every front. But there's another loss most of you probably missed because the media barely covered it, a defeat that shows just how badly Trump's real power has eroded, even on the most technical issues. Look at the science budget. Trump demanded a 56% cut to the National Science Foundation, 56%, a devastating slash and burn proposal. How did Congress respond? They said no. They capped the cut at under 1%. Trump wanted to slash funding for NOAA, the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, the agency that forecasts our weather and tracks hurricanes and floods. Congress held its budget flat, not a single dollar cut. And here's the most important number I want you to remember. Trump wanted to cut more than 33% from basic research, the lifeblood of American technological innovation since World War II. What did Congress do? They tossed his request straight into the trash and increased funding for basic research by more than 2%. This wasn't the work of Democratic opposition. This was a bipartisan agreement that started in the Senate and passed the House last week. It completely shatters the long-held assumption that Congress does nothing or simply rubber stamps whatever the president wants. That is changing, and it's changing against Trump. Republicans in the House now hold such a razor-thin margin that if every Democrat shows up, they can afford to lose exactly one Republican vote. One. They're walking a tightrope without a safety net, and they know they're staring down a midterm election where they're likely to get walloped. Fear of electoral defeat is now outweighing fear of Donald Trump. But these voting defeats are only the tip of the iceberg. A deeper and far more dangerous shift is taking place for Donald Trump, right inside the heart of the MAGA movement itself. It is an ideological shift. For the first time in years, Republicans are beginning to ask a fundamental existential question. Do we really want to be involved in endless wars? Do we want to overthrow foreign governments and steal their resources? This debate matters enormously. Why? Because the very moment they begin debating principles, Donald Trump is pushed out of the equation. Trump has no ideology. He has no principles. He cares only about what benefits him personally in that moment. If the Republican Party begins having serious conversations about the future, about strategy, about America's role in the world, there is no place for someone who operates purely on impulse and instinct. Thomas Massey, an influential voice within the party, said it outright: consider life without Donald Trump. That was a call for separation. And Trump never imagined that people who were once loyal to him would be entertaining that scenario this soon. This cuts off any realistic hope of a 2028 campaign. It strips Trump of his ability to hold the party hostage. His power is evaporating, not because external enemies have grown stronger, but because internal allies are exhausted and fed up. And as political power erodes, the true nature of this administration comes fully into view. We are no longer living in a functioning republic. We are living under what I call a gangster state. I don't use that term for shock value. I use it because it is technically accurate. A state that believes threats are the only way to get things done, and corruption is the only path to advancement. Look at what Representative Jasmine Crockett just exposed during a public hearing. She directly questioned a figure currently sitting inside this administration, Tom H. Homan. Do you know what the allegation is? Homan is accused of taking $50,000 in taxpayer money, but how he took it is what truly matters. He didn't receive a wire transfer. He took cash from an undercover FBI agent, $50,000 in cash in exchange for promises of contracts and kickbacks once Trump returned to office. The Department of Justice once opened an investigation into Tom Homan. They had witnesses. They had evidence. But what happened the moment Donald Trump stepped into the White House? The case was thrown straight into the trash. Drop the file. That was the unspoken order. As a result, the $50,000 in taxpayer money was never recovered. Tom Homan was never indicted, never charged, never forced to answer for anything. Instead, he was promoted and elevated within the new administration. This is how a gangster state operates. The law is a weapon used to punish enemies, but an impenetrable shield to protect insiders. If you're an ordinary citizen who steals $50 from a grocery store cash register, you'll be handcuffed, prosecuted, and carry a criminal record for the rest of your life. But if you're part of this family and you take $50,000 in bribe money drawn from taxpayer funds, your file simply disappears, and you walk away completely untouchable. But this rot doesn't stop with $50,000 cash envelopes passed around by mid-level officials. It has evolved into something far more sophisticated, more legal, and vastly larger in scale, flowing straight to the very top of the power structure. Look at the enormous streams of money pouring into the Trump family's pockets, not through shady suitcases of cash, but through supposedly legitimate business deals. We see private jets from Qatar. We see massive cryptocurrency schemes. But the clearest, most naked example of political money laundering is the deal involving Jeff Bezos and Amazon. Recently, Jeff Bezos paid $30 million for the rights to a documentary about Melania Trump. I need you to be brutally honest with yourself here. Who is going to watch that movie? Who is so desperate to see a documentary about Melania Trump that Amazon would pay $30 million for it? We don't even see her at major public events like the Golden Globes. She has virtually disappeared from public life. So why would Bezos, one of the smartest and most calculating businessmen on the planet, throw $30 million out the window on a product with no commercial value? The answer is that he didn't throw the money away. He invested it. That $30 million wasn't a film licensing fee. To me and to many analysts, it looks a lot more like a protection fee. That is how billionaires buy safety from the White House. That is how they make sure their business empires aren't harassed by antitrust regulations or tax investigations. But here's the real question. Whose money is that $30 million really? It's money that should have been paid as corporate taxes. It's profit that Amazon should have contributed to the national budget. That money should have gone toward building schools for your children, fixing the potholes on your streets, or helping pay for health care for your parents. Instead, it takes a detour disguised as a film licensing fee and quietly slides straight into the private pockets of the president's family. The government loses revenue. The Trump family gets richer. Jeff Bezos gets left alone, and the only loser in this triangle is you. You're being pickpocketed right in front of your eyes without even realizing it. Donald Trump is enriching himself by hollowing out the nation's infrastructure, and he calls it the art of the deal. I call it legalized corruption. All of these pieces, the fight with the Fed, the naval deployment off Venezuela, Homan's bribe, Bezos's money, they form a single picture of collapse. And the Republican Party sees it. That's why Tom Tillis acted. That's why Mark Warner spoke up. Donald Trump is losing the Senate. The midterm elections are approaching, and internal data shows a coming wipeout for Republicans. His already razor-thin House majority is evaporating by the day as resignations pile up. The rats are jumping ship, and those still on board, like Tillis, are scrambling for the wheel before the vessel smashes into the rocks. They've realized that political loyalty has limits, and that limit is money. You can divide society, you can insult your opponents, but you are not allowed to destabilize the currency. The old Wall Street saying is simple: never fight the Fed. Donald Trump is fighting the Fed, and he's losing. Money always wins. When large flows of capital feel threatened, they activate self-defense mechanisms. Tom Tillis is one of those mechanisms. Blocking nominations isn't just a procedural move. It's the end of Trump's real power. He may still sit in the White House. He may still rage on social media, but he has become a true lame duck, unable to appoint officials, unable to pass legislation, and increasingly isolated. This story isn't over. There will be more twists ahead. But I want you to remember these three core truths right now. First, the fight between Trump and the Fed is not about a $4 billion building. That's the excuse. This is a battle for control of the money printer, and Senate Republicans have chosen stability of the currency over loyalty to their own president. Second, military waste has reached an alarming level. 20% of the U.S. naval fleet is effectively bogged down off Venezuela in a years-long, hopeless oil gamble, while real threats elsewhere go unaddressed. Your tax dollars are being burned at sea. Third, the gangster state is revealing itself in full, from $50,000 cash envelopes for mid-level officials to $30 million contracts for billionaires. The system is designed to enrich a small group at the public's expense. What does this mean for your future? Prepare for volatility. A wounded animal is the most dangerous animal. In the final days of power, chaos increases. But take some comfort in this. The system is pushing back. The people who hold the keys to the economy have said, enough. I will continue to closely track every development in this Senate showdown, because this is where mortgage rates and the value of your savings will be decided for the next decade. Don't just listen to what they say on television, watch what they do with your money. If this analysis helped you understand what's really going on, support us by hitting like and subscribing to the channel. Don't let them distract you. Thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next video, where we continue exposing the truth.